Welcome to Ecofactors, a podcast from the Atlantic Wildlife Institute on Canada's East Coast. We sit down with people doing the real work and the communities pushing back against development that doesn't make sense for us or those we share the environment with. We are united with our guests from everywhere in honest conversations about what it actually takes to protect the earth that we call home. Jim, we're back.
Good morning.
Happy Wednesday.
Thank you. Nice snowy one.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
At least where I am. Yeah.
It's a snow globe. And day three, halfway through day three of the Energy Utility Board rigs hearing with NB Power, matter EL002. People can watch it online on YouTube. I know that most people are busy, and that's why we have these little mini interviews so that you can give us an update on what's been happening. So we left off yesterday around midday. Can you tell us what happened in the rest of the day?
Sure. A lot of the rest of the day, unfortunately, yesterday was another in-camera session, so we don't really know what went on around that. Prior to them going into that, though, is the public intervener was doing his cross-examination, and he was starting to zero in on a couple things. One is he really was hammering on the subject of batteries, and pros and cons, and trying to get the NB Power panel to commit to saying things. I believe he's just setting up his expert witness who's going to talk more to that later on in the week. But they did bring up a few little things, like some exhibits that showed like actual decreases in the demand and capacity from 25 to 26, which were on NB Power's own documents.
A decrease in demand. So the line goes
down. It goes down for a bit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Which we would think that it must be going up because they're trying to install a 500 megawatt gas plant.
One would think that. I mean, it's like, well, that's actually when we first saw this proposal way back when, that was one of the first things in their charts, their tables, that stood out to me. I said, well, wait a minute, this is actually a decrease here. But he talked about like with gas in their planning and all like that, they plan for 15 days a year to be gas to be actually unavailable. We touched on this yesterday, that in the wintertime, when we all need all this extra power, is also the time when, because of it's cold in New England as well, and their gas usage goes up, that there's very little available, and so then we have to burn diesel, and this is the 5% of the time that we're supposed to be using this for burning, and so really we're going to be burning diesel, it's not gas. Mm-hmm. And I thought that was kind of interesting.
Yeah, and a lot of that diesel is stored on site. As a side note, people are worried about the risk of fire and wildfires for the area, especially when side note that there is a giant lack of firefighters in the municipality of Tantramar. And the time, actually, I've been trying to figure out the calculation of the time that it actually takes a firefighter to get out Route 940, especially now that it's under construction, and it's a dirt road and there's only one road. And so it doesn't have also fire hydrants out there. I think that should be noted. There's no fire hydrants out there. So I don't know what the plan is for that. But
firefighting,
yeah, one spark and diesel lights on fire, and a lot of people and wildlife and wetlands and forests and in farms and industrial, whatever. It's all in danger. It's actually a green field. There's no industry out there. So one of the other things that CSL said was that he was trying to get the board to say that shouldn't all the ratepayers have the financials of like a big project like this available to them? And they said, yes, of course they should know. And he said, can you present us with those implications to ratepayers in accordance with this project? And they said it's confidential.
Right. Yeah, that's unfortunately what happens with pretty much all the financial information that actually has to do with this project. It's a big problem. One thing the last thing he said before, at the end of his testimony or his cross-examination, which made me perk up, but then it went nowhere, was someone had sent him from, I believe it was from NR Store, mm-hmm. a battery company, who apparently made an offer, a proposal to New Brunswick, but we never got to hear about it because it came in so late. And the NB Power Panel said they'd never seen it because it didn't come through their formal process. But I don't know if it's going to be able to come in later in this process. It'd be interesting because I know they've been going around to different provinces in Canada and I think the states and making some, good deals on batteries.
I think you're right. I think it was
Yeah,
presented to the Minister of Energy by NR Store to show that they can provide the same amount of power that rigs would be providing, for like a tenth of the price or something.
right,
And that definitely the Minister of Energy has that. I don't know why he would hang on to it and not give it to the utility, since they're the ones that supply us with power. But they first said, so the panel, MB Power panel, first said that they weren't sure that they'd seen it. And then they said, well, it might have come through, but we'd have to check with Lori Clark. And then he said, can you get her to check? And then that was turned down by the board because that would be new evidence and that's not how the procedure works. So that's
right.
disappointing.
Yes.
But I respect that there's procedure.
Right. And I expect that I expect that goes along with what I said earlier about he seems to be prepping his expert witness pretty heavily on the battery and alternatives aspect. But when he was done, there was then the board there was another in-camera session with him, and then uh, right before noon, the board staff itself started asking questions, and that was pretty interesting. The line of questioning, was really basically building a timeline of figures and proposals that seemed to indicate that this whole process happened really quickly, more quickly than normal, and a lot of the numbers didn't seem to add up from one to another.
You're right. And I think that if the board's whole thing is prudency, that I don't think you can have a rushed project and also be prudent at the same time. Are you carefully running? Because I think that Cody is insinuating that they're driving 100 miles per hour down a road and they can't read the signs. And I think when I was in driving school, the whole thing was if you're driving faster than your headlights can see, then you're more likely to hit the moose or the deer. um, so that's not prudency. In fact, Cody has said on a number of occasions that they were not prudent, that they were rushed and panicked and scared. And I think what they're insinuating, what Miss Mallory is insinuating, I'm trying to get to maybe like is a better word than insinuating, is that that the decision was based on a risk assessment and not a resource adequacy report.
Right, right. Because when you have that, when you do something based just on that immediate risk, well, it locks you in. It kind of precludes alternatives, and also that means down in the future you've got this investment you've already made. So it's hard, even when you realize that, oops, we screwed up. There's nothing you can do about it. You can't. And also then there are future costs like with this that we know are going to get worse, but now are unavoidable once you make that decision, as on risk as opposed to plan. And he meaning Cody, when as we spoke about earlier, went a lot into this whole idea of we're all going to freeze in the dark, and that's the one thing that's got to be avoided, and and I think that's probably well, what often happens is you overstate the risk like that. And then you undervalue the ability of other alternatives to address, that risk. And I think that's where they're headed. And I think that's where the board staff was hopefully heading in that direction.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it was a great quote by Yves Gagnon, where he said that it looks like NB Power, I mean, besides just being on the back foot, like back footing the entire time, that they seem to have made, well, they're making it very clear to everyone that they have made this decision based on how easy, like this is their easiest option. Not the best option, not the best option for the people of New Brunswick, not the best option for ratepayers, not the best option for the environment or for the future of the climate or their debt to equity ratio or to reach their 2035 net zero goals, which are supposed to be kind of up near the top of the priority list. So this is just the easiest route. And if you look at the amount of money that they get paid, I don't see why like we're the ratepayers, we're paying for them. Why are they taking the easiest route? This is not good for any of us, and we don't want it. We don't like it. We would like you to take the little bit harder route and go renewables and make this energy transition.
Well, even their own their internal review that they had done by KPMG, the accounting firm, one of the conclusions they came to about this project was that it was done so quickly, that if they had more time to actually think about things, they could have come up with other alternatives. I mean, so that was right in their own internal stuff, and by pinning it all on this one big risk. Uh, Cody actually went into the whole thing about like thousands of people will die, like in Texas, when they had a big loss of power down there, and so that elevates that risk, but it completely ignores the greater risk of, well, let's start talking about the, you know, tens of thousands of people who died in Europe in their climate-induced heat wave. How many hundreds of people died in BC from forest fires and the billions of dollars, and how many hundreds of people died in the floods all
Absolutely.
around the place. It's like, so, okay,
Absolutely.
so yeah, we're not saying that there's no risk of having one bad cold day is going to lose power and there might be some suffering, but there's a much greater risk by, going down this other path and simply increasing your odds of having a climate event wipe you out,
A
so.
total climate catastrophe.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. That is a major point. Thank you, Jim. Is there anything else you want to add today?
No, I'd say it was kind of a slow day, except I'm sorry we can't get to sit in on all those in-camera sessions.
Yeah.
So,
Wow.
but I'm looking forward to hearing the rest of the board staff because I thought that they were on to something there, and
Absolutely.
who the next ones are. So we'll talk tomorrow.
Yes, we'll talk tomorrow. Thank you so much for your time.
Sure. Take care.
Thanks.